and I grew up in a house with a mimic where several of my other family members also experienced that spirit.
No regular house, because there was a grave inside the house. Yes, a grave. And it was rumored that people who used to work there would not stay in the house because of the grave. But
their whole entire bloodline was cursed for many years.
Do something with it.
It's just money coming to me easily. Money coming in and needing me. Money coming in repeatedly. Money coming, it's just money coming. It's just money coming to me frequently. Money coming in to be with me. Money coming in secretly. Money coming, it's just money coming. It's just money coming to me always. Money coming in all day. Money coming in all paid. Money coming, it's just money coming. It's just money coming to me frequently. Money coming in to be with me.
Your favorite Haitian homegirl is back with another spooky story. This person said that they got some ghost/zombie stories that they would like to share, and they are from the Seychelles Island. So this one is a very short encounter. We're gonna call the person who submitted the story Shelly. So this story happened a long time ago. So in the old days, people used to work on the smaller island on Seychelles. So there was a young man who lived in a house, and this wasn't no regular house because there was a grave inside the house. Yes, a grave. And it was rumored that people who used to work there would not stay in the house because of the grave. But this one particular guy that came to work on the island, he didn't mind that that house had a grave inside of it. So much so that he would stay in the house with the grave. He would clean it every day, put flowers on it, take care of it, as if the person's grave was like one of his family. And this went on for a while. Then one day the guy had a dream. He dreamt of a man that gave him very specific instructions. This man came to him in his dreams and said, "Tomorrow before you leave the house, broom it, and while doing so, walk backwards and close the door. Listen to me and do what I have told you." So the guy then woke up and did what he was told in his dream by that person. He left for work and came back home. But when he came back to the house, he found footprints. So he's confused by these footprints because they're very clear. Somebody's been inside of his home. So he went to the person who was in charge of the island, a manager of some sort. And this person is called Résissé or Regisseur, which the person says is Creole, but they don't have the English word for it. So he went and spoke to that guy. And again, it's a small island. There's not many people that, you know, come in and out of this area. So the Résisseur decides to go back to the house to investigate. So he decided that he was going to measure the size of the footprints and compare it to people in the area. And apparently, they found a match. So come to find out, the man who's been living in a house with the grave, he had beef with somebody else. And that other person was actually planning on unaliving him in the house. So when he had the dream of the ghost coming to him and telling him, "Hey, this is what you need to do," and walk out of the house backwards. So unbeknownst to him, he was actually going to get unalived that night. But the ghost came and told him what to do that morning. And when he came back home, they found footsteps. They matched the footstep to the guy he was beefing with. Pretty much the ghost saved him and warned him about his own unaliving the night before. And he did that all because the guy has been paying respect and cleaning his grave every single day.
This spooky scary story time takes place in a small village in Bosnia, and the person who sent me this story said that the village is filled with people who practice all kinds of spirituality. There's dark witches, there's light witches, people dance around fires, and sometimes the supernatural is as vivid as reality. The person who sent me this story said that one night their grandfather went to the pub and sadly found another woman he was attracted to. The thing was, he was already married with the person's grandmother at home and 4 small children. But her grandfather brings this new woman home as his new bride. She says she knows it's strange, but in their village it wasn't that uncommon. Nevertheless, her grandmother accepts her fate and takes her and her small children away while her grandfather gets his act together. She says the woman that her grandfather would go on to lay with and pretend like he was married to was actually a dark witch in their village. She said she had a strange presence and an evil one at that. She would go out to milk the cows at night and they would bleed right through. She would burn his belongings at night and dance around a fire, and she said that her grandmother assumed she did this as a sort of ritual. She said no one in the village knew this woman. She was a stranger, but there were only about 7 houses in the village and it was pretty isolated, so no one really knew where she came from. Her grandmother ultimately gives her grandfather an ultimatum and says, "You either pick me or her, you can't have both." He chose her grandmother. So the woman leaves, she storms off, but she's mad at him. And not long after she leaves, they start finding dead animals all around their property. Her uncle, who was a small child at the time, became possessed by a djinn. He started climbing up walls, defying physics, and nobody could explain what was happening with their family. Her aunt, who was also a small child, all of a sudden goes into a catatonic state and can't talk for a year. One of the other kids in the house, a girl, would go on to have completely unfortunate and terrible luck throughout her entire life. And the final child would eventually pass from a heart attack before being brought back to life. After all this, her grandfather had had enough, and he decided he was going to himself and tried to hang himself. He hung for 10 minutes before someone pulled him down, and he did not pass. Her grandmother calls an imam to the house, which I believe is similar to like a Western priest, and he comes to the house and tells them that she has buried a hex on the property, and he also tells them how to get rid of it. The imam was so precise with where he said that the hex was buried that they found it exactly where he said it was. But she said the curse of death magic was too great for their family, and it's been nearly 100 years of dark magic through their bloodline. She says the witch has now passed, but unfortunate circumstances continue to haunt their family. She says it cannot be removed and her family must live with it. She says although she never met the witch, she sometimes dreams of her dancing around a fire. If anyone has advice for the person who submitted this story, please leave it in the comments. This is a topic unfamiliar to me, but as always, I try to be respectful and just relay the information that was sent to me in the emails. Keep sending me your unbelievable stories. I'll keep adding them to this playlist. A girl named Evelyn emailed me and she told me she has the gift of prophecy and what she thinks is going to happen in 2025. She said she's never wrong, and she also shared the story time of how this all started. So Evelyn is obviously not her real name. She said she doesn't want to be looked at as crazy by anyone who actually knows her. You can skip to this part in the video if you just want to know what she thinks is going to happen this year, but if you're interested in the background in her story time, this is it. Evelyn grew up in Ohio, okay, Southern Baptist community where religion was woven into the fabric of everyday life. The church was literally her family's life. Both of her parents were heavily involved in the church, and every single weekend Evelyn was doing some church related activity. Evelyn actually really liked growing up in a religious community. She said she was absolutely mesmerized as a child about the lectures and the sermons of sin and salvation. She said she believed wholeheartedly back then that God's love was unconditional, but that his wrath was also very real and inescapable for the unrepentant. She took her faith seriously, but it also terrified her. She couldn't escape the feeling that she was always being judged by God, her parents, and her church community. She tried to be a good member of the church, but by the age of 12, she began to notice something different about herself. While other girls in her youth group gushed over boys and the men they would eventually marry, Evelyn felt a pull toward the girls, something that she couldn't explain. It was something more than friendship, and she knew that according to her church, this was wrong. She said when these feelings started, she prayed to God every single night to take away these feelings that she hadn't even acted on. She was a good girl in her parents' eyes, someone who memorized scripture, and she felt trapped by their expectations, and if they found out, they would see her as a failure or worse, a sinner beyond redemption. When she went off to college, she still clung to her faith, but she didn't feel as connected as she did before. She didn't really know what to do without the structure of her community. She began to wonder if God would still accept her and love her if she embraced the part of herself that she had denied for so long. When she finally came out to herself and her parents, she was surprised that they actually accepted her with open arms. She said although her parents didn't quite understand what she was going through, they never made her question whether or not they still loved her. They were completely accepting, and she feels really fortunate to have parents like that. But when she came out, she expected this guilt that she felt to vanish overnight. It didn't. Instead, she had this burden that she carried, and she didn't quite know why. Her parents made it clear that she could talk to them about anything, so she did, and she told them that she had this sense of guilt that she could not shake. They said to pray about it, and they also asked her if she wanted to get with a therapist, and she said yes. The therapist suggests that she starts journaling to unlock these feelings and maybe process them. After a while she's doing this, she feels a little bit better, but then the therapist suggests she tries automatic writing, which she described to me as basically you put pen to paper, you don't really think about it, and you just write whatever comes out. She said when she first started doing this, it was just nonsensical scribbles and words and phrases, but then a pattern began to emerge and her first prophecy came. One night in February, she is practicing automatic writing when all of a sudden her pen writes, "Beware of the black ice on the way to the market. Your tires will fail. Take another road." And she looks at it and she's like, what is this? She was confused but intrigued, and she just brushed it off as like a creative thing from her subconscious. The next morning, she was on her way to the farmer's market with one of her friends. They were taking their usual route when all of a sudden she remembered what she wrote in her journal, and she's like, you know what? I'm just going to go with it. So she takes a different way. She said it took like 5 minutes longer, so it wasn't really a big deal. But later that night, she saw on the local news there was a massive pileup caused by black ice on her original route. There were 5 vehicles involved and 1 fatality. When she saw this, she just turned off the TV. A couple weeks later, it happened again. She was practicing automatic writing one night, and a cryptic phase popped up on the paper and warned her of a date. It said, "The chicken will burn, the air will choke you, stay home." She says she was supposed to go out to dinner that night with a girl that she had met on a dating app, but after seeing this thing pop up on her page and remembering what happened with the black ice incident, she cancels the date. She later learned that there was a gas leak at the restaurant that night that caused a small explosion. Luckily, nobody was harmed, but it still spooked her. Another time, she's warned about helping an elderly neighbor. It says, "The old man will fall by the oak tree and no one will hear him." Acting on the message, she checks on one of her elderly neighbors and sees that sure enough, he has fallen in his yard. His cries for help were barely audible. Now, a large part of Evelyn's email concerned one of her ex-relationships. She told me that basically her prophecies, her automatic writing warned her about the activities, some of which were illegal, that her ex was involved in. She said there was no way that she could have known about these activities had her automatic writing not prompted her to check them out. I'm going to post the longer version of this story on my IT channel because the details of that little side story are too crazy for TikTok and too long. But these were Evelyn's predictions for 2025 according to her automatic writing, okay? She said one of the reasons that she sent me these prophecies was to see what everybody thinks they mean because they haven't happened yet and she doesn't know. So the first is a great rift will form, not of seas but of people. Two halves will sever. The second is a cure will come but the price will be high. What's healed will leave scars. The third she thinks is specific to her, but she's not sure. It said, the one who wears the silver ring will turn against you when the hour grows late. The fourth, this one's creepy. The web will unravel and silence will fall. The lights of the world will flicker, leaving us in the dark. The next is, a child born in the shadow will sing a song that changes everything. He will be the first of his kind. In the last one, she said her subconscious seems to bring up a lot. Beneath the earth, something ancient stirs. It will rise with no name, and its call will be heard only by those who dream. Yeah, if you have any thoughts on what any of this means, Evelyn said she's curious to hear your thoughts because none of this ever makes sense to her until something happens. Evelyn will be seeing the comments to let her know if you have any thoughts. Everybody else, keep sending me your spooky, scary stories. The submission link is in my bio.
Not shitting you, this is the 7th time I've recorded this, and I've uploaded it 2 times and it doesn't exist. So maybe I'm not supposed to tell this story. I'm gonna try one more time. If this is not successful, we'll try another day. But as I've been saying in all my other videos, I have lived a very active life, paranormally active. And I grew up in a house with a mimic where several of my other family members also experienced that spirit. So I have maybe like 12 really good stories, but I mean, my grandma saw someone standing at the foot of her bed while she was sleeping. My mom had also experienced someone standing over her while she was trying to fall asleep but couldn't. My brother had seen a lot and heard a lot. I seen and heard a lot. My uncle had seen and heard things. Scratching under people's beds. I mean, whatever was in our house, we were constantly mistaking for either each other or it was a little demonic in nature. But I'm convinced this was a mimic. And the story I want to tell in particular is about a time where I was 16 and I was home alone, and it was very common, and it's very common in Black households for there to be an intergenerational setup in the house. So my uncle lived with us, my grandma, whoever else needed a place at the time, and my cousin, for the purposes and intents of this video, I'm going to call him my brother. But we lived downstairs together on either side of a hallway. Our house was on a hill, so the main living facilities, the living room, the kitchen, my grandma's room, all of the adults were upstairs. And you go downstairs and there is a hallway. On either side is his room and my room, and right in the center of the hallway, equidistant, is a back door. So this one particular night I'm home alone, and it was very rare for me to be home alone. I was on the phone with my friend and we had just gotten a puppy. This night, the dog seemed like she really wanted to pee, and I was on the phone with my friend, and I told my friend, hey, I'll call you back in a little bit. My dog needs to go outside. So I walked the dog outside, and just to describe things a little bit, because it's important to understand, there is a wooden patio on, and I'm coming up on the end of this video, so unfortunately there's gonna have to be a part 2.
Hey guys, welcome back to All Things Jenny. I'm Jenny and I'm back with another spooky story time for you. So in this story, in my opinion, I believe because of this young lady's great-great-great-grandfather, their whole entire bloodline was cursed for many years. And my opinion of that will be at the end of that, because Things like this happen so often that people don't realize. You do something to harm someone or to hurt someone's family, and you don't realize that you could possibly cause a curse to be on you or put on your bloodline because of the one stupid thing that you did. So anyways, guys, let's get into the story. Let me know your opinion in the comment section, and you know I will be commenting and I will be replying to all your comments. My opinion of all of this will be at the end. Talk to you later.
Okay, so I talked for like 3 minutes without recording anything. I'm exhausted. But part 2, I went outside to take the dog on a pee break, and in the backyard, it's as soon as you step out, there's a wooden patio. There's 5 feet of patio in front of me, 5 feet of patio beside me, and outside of that radius is just grass. It's dark. Our backlight pretty much only lit up what was on the wood. So if you were outside of the wooden patio, you were in the dark. There was a lot of trees and bushes to hide in if anyone was interested, and I don't know. And after that, we had out at the perimeter of the backyard was the alley, and as I said, anybody could be hiding in the bushes, anything, coyotes. Because if you're in the alley, you could just scale the back gate and come right into the house. So I was standing on the edge of the patio to ensure that my puppy was okay, so she didn't get got by whatever was in the darkness. And suddenly, I noticed that she's looking to the left of her, and I hear at the top of the house the wooden back gate open up on the side of the house, and I hear my brother jumping down several wooden stairs. Now, the wooden stairs at the side of the house are, there's about 20 of them. So, and I'm stuttering now because I'm really irritated because I told the story like 7 times, but there's 20 stairs and he's 14. So he's jumping down about every other stair, every third stair. So you hear like 7, dunk, 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 dunk. And that's how I always knew it was him, because he never ever walked up the stairs. He jumped up and he jumped down. So I hear him jumping down the stairs and running through the grass. I hear him and feel him run onto the wooden patio that I'm standing on, and I feel the wood depress with his footsteps. So I turn around and I'm like, hey, what are you doing sneaking out at night? You doing bad shit, and only I can do bad shit. What are you doing bad shit? I just wanted to fight, okay? I turned around and I wanted to argue with him because all we did was fight, and there was no one there. So I look back at the dog, and she's stiff. She's not moving. Her tail is straight down, as if she wanted it to be between her legs, but she didn't get the chance to put it between her legs. And I look back to my left, and I'm convinced that he's hiding, because I know I'm not alone. I feel that I'm not by myself. So I start walking into the grass, and I'm looking around into the bushes, and I'm calling out, so-and-so, so-and-so, where are you? Come out of the bushes and stop playing with me. Part 3. Okay, part 3, I'm sorry. Part 3. We made it. Okay, we made it. We're here. I'm standing in the backyard. I swear my brother is messing with me. I'm looking in the bushes. So-and-so, where are you at? I feel that I am not alone. So I look back at the dog in confusion, and she's still stiff. Suddenly it hits me. That little voice in my head says, go inside. Didn't have to tell me twice. I grabbed that dog so fast, I ran into the house, turned around, slammed the back door, ran down the hallway, went in my room, slammed that door. I'm in the bed. I got the dog on the bed with me. I pick up the phone. I FaceTime my friend, and I'm like, you are never going to believe what is happening right now, or what had just happened. And I noticed that Scrappy, the dog, is starting to act up a little weird. So I avert my attention from my phone, and I look at the dog, and she's standing on the edge of the bed. She's walking around the perimeter, every corner of the bed, walking around the perimeter, looking at the ground. And suddenly, she's growling. She's still looking, following something on the floor, as if something's on the ground that she's following, but she won't get down. And then all of a sudden, she darts up, She's looking at the ceiling. That way, that way, that way, that way, that way, that way. She's screaming her little dog head off. She's barking everywhere. And her eyes are following something. She is barking at something all over the place, running back and forth on the bed, barking at everything. And I'm horrified. I'm on the phone with my friend. I'm like, whoa, hold on, friend. I don't know what's going on right now. My friend is like, hello? I'm like, look, I'm gonna call you back. I'm scared. I grab that dog, run in the bathroom. I lock myself in there until my family comes home. And now, I used to lie when I was a kid. And when my family came home, they believed me. Because there were things in the house that they themselves had experienced already that made my story, like, not far-fetched. I don't know what it was that night, but ever since then, from that night on, the goings-on in the house got so bad that we actually started to think that it was a demon in the house. And I can tell you why in another story, but yeah, that mimic was imitating everybody in the house. My grandma, we could hear her calling our names and banging on the wall in a particular way that only she would bang on the wall when she would try to call us for help if she needed anything upstairs. We were hearing each other's voices, all kinds of stuff. Okay, let me know if you want to hear those stories too.